In 1991, two hikers crossing a glacier high in the Alps spotted something brown sticking out of the melting ice. They thought it was a climber who'd died on the mountain. They called the police. They were wrong by 5,000 years. The man in the ice had been lying there since before the pyramids were built. He is the oldest, best preserved human being ever found. We have his face, his tattoos, his clothes, even the food in his stomach from his final meal. And buried deep in his shoulder, hidden for 53 centuries, a stone arrowhead. This isn't ancient history, it's an unsolved murder. And after 5,300 years, the evidence is finally telling us what happened on the day this man died, and who was hunting him. This is the oldest cold case in the world. It's September 1991 in the Ötzi Alps on the border between Austria and Italy. A German couple are hiking off the marked path when they see it. A human head and shoulders, face down, emerging from the ice of a melting glacier. They assume it's a mountaineering accident. People die up here every year. Recovery teams are sent, but getting the body out is a disaster. They use ice picks, even a jackhammer, damaging it before anyone realizes what they're dealing with. Because something is wrong. The equipment near the body is strange, primitive. There's an axe, but it's not modern. There are scraps of fur and woven grass, and the body itself is leathery, dried, ancient. When experts finally examine it, the truth lands like a thunderclap. This is not a lost hiker. This man died around 3,300 BC, over 5,000 years ago. The glacier had frozen him solid almost the instant he died and held him perfectly ever since. They give him a name after the valley where he was found, Ötzi. And the more they study him, the stranger his story becomes. No human from the ancient world has ever been studied this completely. Ötzi isn't a skeleton or a cast. He is a person. Skin, hair, organs, blood, all preserved. From his bones and teeth, we know he was around 45 years old for his time. He stood about 5'2". From his DNA, we know he had brown eyes, dark hair, and was lactose intolerant. We even know he had a genetic risk of heart disease, and modern scans found his arteries were already hardening. Look at his skin, and you find something astonishing. Tattoos. Over 60 of them. Small lines and crosses, inked in charcoal. But these aren't decoration. They cluster on his lower back, his knees, his ankles, exactly the joints that scans show were worn down by arthritis. They line up with ancient acupuncture points. This may be the oldest known medical treatment in human history, marked into his very skin. And his clothes survived too. A coat of stitched goat hide, leggings, a bearskin cap, woven grass cloak, and shoes insulated with hay. This was a man dressed to survive the high mountains. He carried tools that tell us he was important, including one object that changes everything. Among his gear was an axe, and its blade was not stone, it was copper. This matters more than it sounds. In 3,300 BC, metal was brand new and incredibly rare. A copper axe was a status symbol, the kind of object only a respected, high-ranking man would own. Whoever Ötzi was, he was not a nobody. He also carried a longbow, unfinished, and a quiver of arrows, most of them not yet ready to shoot. He had a flint dagger, a fire-starting kit, and a sophisticated medicine pouch with birch fungus, a natural antibiotic. This is the picture forming: a respected, older man, possibly a leader or a herder of status, well-equipped, experienced, deep in the high mountains. A man who knew exactly what he was doing up here. So here's the first real question of the case. Why is a man like this, alone, his weapons half-finished, fleeing up a glacier, thousands of feet above the safe valleys, on the last day of his life? The answer is hidden inside his stomach. In 2018, scientists did something no one had managed before. They found and analyzed the contents of Ötzi's stomach, his actual last meal. And it tells an incredible story. His final meal was surprisingly rich. The fatty meat of an ibex, some red deer, and ancient grain, einkorn wheat. It was a heavy, high-fat meal, exactly what you'd eat to fuel a hard climb in the cold. He ate well, not long before he died. But the deeper they looked, the stranger the timeline became. By analyzing pollen trapped in his gut, scientists could trace his movements in his final 2 days, and they make no sense for a calm journey. In his last 48 hours, Ötzi went down into a warm, low valley where certain trees were in bloom, and then climbed all the way back up into the high, frozen mountains. Down, then up, fast. Something happened down in that valley. Something that sent a respected, middle-aged man sprinting up a glacier, into the cold, away from everyone. And whatever it was, it followed him. For 10 years after he was found, everyone assumed Ötzi simply died of exposure, an old man caught in a storm, frozen on the mountain. A tragedy, but not a mystery. Then, in 2001, a radiologist took another X-ray, and there it was, lodged deep in Ötzi's left shoulder, hidden under the skin for 5,300 years, a flint arrowhead. This changes everything. Ötzi didn't freeze to death. He was shot. Someone, standing behind him and below him, loosed an arrow that tore up into his shoulder and severed a major artery. The wound would have caused massive bleeding. Within minutes, he would have collapsed. And here's the chilling detail. The shaft of the arrow was pulled out, but the stone head was left inside, snapped off. Someone yanked the arrow from his back. Why? Possibly to hide the evidence, to make sure no one could trace the distinctive arrow back to the person who fired it. This wasn't an accident. This was a killing, and the killer tried to cover their tracks. Once they knew he was murdered, investigators went back over every inch of his body, and the evidence of violence was everywhere. On his right hand, a deep cut between the thumb and finger, a classic defensive wound, the kind you get grabbing a blade or fighting someone off hand to hand. And crucially, that wound had only just begun to heal. It happened a day or two before he died. Ötzi had been in a fight before the final attack. There was also a severe blow to the back of his head, possibly the true cause of death, delivered as he lay dying, or a fall after the arrow struck. Then came the most haunting evidence of all. On his weapons, his cloak, and an arrow in his own quiver, scientists found traces of blood from 4 different people. 4. One of them was on an arrow he'd apparently retrieved, as if Ötzi had shot at his attackers, then pulled his own arrows back to reuse them. This was no lone hunting accident. In his final days, this one man was at the center of bloody, close-range violence involving at least 4 other people. So let's put the evidence together and reconstruct the oldest crime scene in the world. A day or two before he dies, something erupts in the valley. A fight. Ötzi is wounded in the hand defending himself. He sheds the blood of others. Their blood ends up on his gear. Whatever the conflict was, he doesn't win it cleanly. He runs. He climbs, fast and high, into the frozen mountains where few would follow, carrying half-finished weapons as if he'd grabbed them in a hurry. Up there, exhausted, he stops in a sheltered hollow. He eats that heavy meal. Maybe he thinks he's finally safe. He is not. His killer has tracked him all the way up the glacier. And here's a detail that points away from a simple robbery. When Ötzi died, his precious copper axe, the most valuable thing he owned, was left lying beside him. A thief would have taken it. This killer didn't. They didn't want his wealth. They wanted him dead. The arrow strikes from behind. The artery is torn. Ötzi falls. The killer pulls the telltale shaft from the wound and vanishes down the mountain, leaving the body to the ice, which will hide their crime for 5,300 years. We will never know the killer's name, but the evidence narrows the motive. It wasn't robbery. The axe was left behind. So what was it? A blood feud spilling over from that valley fight? A struggle for power, with Ötzi, the respected leader, cut down by a rival? A personal betrayal? Someone he knew, someone he trusted, who followed him into the mountains where no one would see. What we can say is this. This was personal, and it was deliberate. Somebody wanted this specific man dead so badly that they chased him up a glacier to finish it, and then carefully hid the evidence. 5,300 years later, that evidence is finally speaking. And it's telling us that human beings, even at the very dawn of civilization, were already doing the most human thing of all, killing each other and covering it up. Ötzi was a real man. He had a name we'll never know, a family, a status, aching joints, and a heavy meal in his belly on the day he died running for his life. He was murdered 53 centuries ago and dropped into the ice. And there he stayed, through the rise and fall of Egypt, Rome, and every empire that ever was, until a melting glacier handed him back to us, with the Arrowhead still inside him, demanding we solve his case. And in a strange way, we did. The oldest murder victim in history finally told us what happened to him. We just had to wait 5,000 years to listen. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, which ancient mystery should we investigate next? A pharaoh's murder? A lost expedition? You decide. As always, we'll see you in the past.